Welcome to VLearn Virtual Learning Network. This is session number 2 of Political Ideas and Ideologies, and the topic is Theorizing the Political. Topics to be covered are Introduction, Historical Approach, Sociological Approach, Philosophical Approach, and Integrated Approach. Autonomous character of political science, empirical versus normative theory, contemporary relevance of classics, continuity of traditional political thought, and the new science of politics. Now come to the introduction. Without trying to attempt a precise definition of the nature and scope of political science, one might say that there is a broad view and a narrow view of politics and political phenomena, and the one placing its main emphasis on political functions and treating politics as a process or a type of activity, and the other on political structures and orienting itself toward various types of political institutions. Historical approach. A typical political theory includes, according to Sabine, factual statements about the postures of the affairs that give rise to it, statements of what may be roughly called a causal nature, statements that something ought to happen or is the right and desirable things to have happened. Basically, this approach is represented by George H. Sabine. Sabine proceeds with his definition of political science in a very practical manner. He suggests that we include in political science all those subjects which have been the major themes of discussion in writing of well-known political philosophers like Plato, Aristotle, Hobbes, and others. In the writing of these philosophers, we may try to search out those questions which they have raised about the truth of the validity. Questions concerning goods or ideal to be realized in or though the state's meaning of freedom, why men obey the government, and the sphere of government activities meaning of equality. These are some of the questions which have agitated the mind of the political philosopher though the ages. In addition, we may also make an inventory of questions regarding the state, the relationship between state and society, and between the individual and the state, and discuss them at length if they have not been fully discussed by these political philosophers. The sociological approach. The historical approach has been generally criticized as one which is much too differential to tradition. It is also pointed out by many of the modern writers that this approach takes a narrow view of politics and restricts it to the domain of the state. Several contemporary writers have tried to widen the scope of political science so as to include not only the state but the society as well. A point of view which is very clearly brought out by Catlin. Catlin would like to use politics in the Aristotle sense, in the sense in which it includes all those activities which are carried out within the auspices of society. Catlin regards political science as indistinguishable from sociology and has pointed out a number of advantages of this approach. First, it allows the students to deal with the relation and structure of society as a whole. It links up his studies with the general theory of society, which the political scientist can ignore only at their frill. If the political scientist deals with the state as his unit of analysis, he is likely to neglect the trivial and the common details regarding political events taking place from day to day. If the political scientist decide to go beyond the study of institution and undertakes the study of functions and processes, he would find it easier to pick up a unit of analysis. Catlin, on his part, has opted for the study of phenomena of control as the central concern of study of politics. By the act of control, he means the act of individuals. Catlin would have no objection to define politics as VOK has done as The study of government, provided we accept government as a synonym for control and not institution like the president of or cabinet. One could also call politics a study of power and influence if we clearly understood that influence is not government, or in Max Webster world the struggle for power or the influences of those in power, or embarrassing the struggle between state as such and between organized group within the state. The philosophical approach. Political theory, according to Strauss, is the attempt truly to know the nature of political things. Philosophy being the coast of wisdom, the quest of universal knowledge for the knowledge of the whole. Political philosophy is the attempt truly to know both the nature of the political things and the right or the good political order. Values, Strauss believes, are an indispensable part of political philosophy and cannot be executed from the study of politics. All political actions aim at either preservation or change and is guided by some thought or evaluation of what is better and what is worse. Integrated approach. If it is important not to allow political science to be lost in scientism and moralism, it is also important that both the scientific and the philosophic aspect of political theory should be properly understood and emphasized. A scientific approach to the study of a problem therefore involves two things. First one is the agreement on methods, and the second one is the training of the human beings in scientific work. Taking these two aspects into consideration. Autonomous character of political science. The close identification of political science with either science or philosophy raises, in the opinion of Norman Jacobson, another kind of danger, the danger of political theory ending up in some kind of scientism or moralism. Jacobson is of the view that contemporary political scientists are trying to make a political science anything but political science. It would seem, he writes, that politics is psychology or it is sociology, that is moral philosophy or theology, that it is almost anything but politics. Empirical versus normative theory. While several approaches to political science have been advocated from time to time, and many of them have often coexisted simultaneously, they might be broadly divided into two categories. First, empirical analytical or the scientific behavioral approach. Second, legal historical or the normative philosophical approach. On the other, each of these two approaches has been mainly demarcated from the other by the emphasis it lays on facts as against values and on values as against facts. Two opposite positions are taken up in this respect by those who have been described by Robert Dahl as empirical theory and trans empirical theorists. The empirical theorists believe that an empirical science of politics based on facts alone is possible, whereas the others, the trans empirical theorists, are of the opinion that the study of politics neither can nor should be purely scientific. The controversy mainly revolves around two major issues. First one is, can political analysis be neutral? And second is, should political analysis be neutral? A correct decision on what is empirically true is not the same as a correct decision on what ought to be. What Whether values are derived from God's will or natural laws, or are purely subjective in nature, as the existentialists believe facts are there for all to see and can subjected to empirical test, whereas values cannot be tested this way. Whether the stability of popular governments in general or in a particular country, it is in any way dependent on literacy. Multi-party systems, proportional representation, a two-party system, whether it can best function under single member constituencies, and questions which can be tested empirically, irrespective of facts, whether they are concerning the right or the wrong political systems. Contemporary relevance of classics, while the empirical theorists under the impressive scientific grab of behavioralism seems to be dominating the discipline of political science during the 50s and the 60s. The use as well as the relevance of classical political philosophy continued to be widely recognized, and a number of influential contemporary political thinkers continue to defend and uphold the traditional classical politics theory and severally criticize the empirical analytical approaches. Continuity of traditional political thought. Michael Oakeshott, who took over the chair of political science in the London School of Economics and political science from Harvard Lasky in 1951, has been identified with the resurgence of conservative thinking in England, but it would be wrong to regard his major contribution was to recover political theory as a tradition of inquiry and regain for political science the possibility of a critical theoretical analysis. The New Science of Politics view of Eric Voegelin. Among the modern political thinkers who have taken fights into the heights of political philosophy, the name of Eric Voegelin stands out as the most prominent. He is prolific writer, though his style is somewhat complicated and it is not always easy to follow him. It is the duty of the political theorist, according to Voegelin, the empirical examine and critical evaluate man's experience, though history was a view to seeking the light which they shed upon his own search for truth about order to human society. At a time when the behavioralists were trying to rationalize and justify the elitist concept of democracy through their applied studies and collection of statistical data, there is too much that gets lost when attention is focused on what we can readily measure by standard kind of sociological techniques, individual meanings of political commitments. For example, he was critical of the prevailing tendency in current research of not trying to relate behavioral data meaningfully to normative theories of democracy. Now there are some questions on the base of this session. First one is comment on the autonomous character of political science, and second is distinguish between the philosophical and the integrated approach to study politics. Thank you. Happy learning. We learning.